Hey friends, we are back and it is dotnetConf. I'm Scott Hanselman, your host, and we're having all sorts of fun today on the Community Day of dotnetConf. It's day 3, and we're talking today with Jasmine Greenaway from GitHub, and she's going to give us a lap around OctoKit. This is a really nice way to give us more detail into how we can see a real-world project doing real-world stuff. Thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I will go ahead and control the switch between your slides and yourself, and take it away, Jasmine.
All right, thank you. Hi, as Scott said, I'm Jasmine Greenaway. I work at GitHub. What I do there is I work on the Visual Studio extension, along with Andrea, who you might have seen earlier. You can find me at GitHub under the handle Paladik. I'm also there on Twitter. So so if you have any questions about OctoKit that you don't remember now, you can definitely send me a DM or send me a mention, and I'll try to answer it for you. All right, so we'll get into it. So OctoKit.net is a client library for the GitHub API. It's written in C#, helps .NET devs write apps that interact with the API. What you essentially use the API for is making custom tools that integrate with GitHub for your workflow, or just making things for fun. It's kind of use it at your disposal. It's fun to work with. So I'm going to talk about some of the features. So it's available. You can use it on the platforms like .NET 4.5, Xamarin, and Mono. And it's also available on NuGet. Installing it is pretty straightforward. Shouldn't take long, as its dependencies are probably things you have already, like .NET 4.5 and system.net.http, stuff that include references that are already included when you start a new project or a new solution. So now we're going to move on to the topic of how OctoKit works with GitHub's API. So version 3.0 of the API is GitHub API, which is the current version right now, is a RESTful API that also supports authentication, specifically OAuth, and it sends and receives JSON. And OctoKit.net, what OctoKit.net does is deserializes and serializes the responses to send and receive into a simple and intuitively written and easy to use library that is mapped onto types that are synonymous with the API's endpoints. So the example that you're looking at this slide here is I want to get all the issues in a repo. And on the left, this is what it looks like in the API if you were to look at GitHub's API documentation. And so it sends JSON, and then OctoKit.net deserializes that into an issue type, and you can get all of those issues from that repository by putting in who the owner of the repository and the repository name. So we're going to take a look at what's inside OctoKit.net. One way to learn about how it works is to kind of look at the integration tests and just kind of poke around and see where it leads you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to switch to OctoKit. And the first thing I'm going to show you is actually not an integration test, but it's actually close to what I was talking about earlier about the deserialization between OctoKit.net and what the API sends as JSON. So here's tests where I am deserializing, where an issue is being deserialized. You have all this JSON here, and all we're doing right here is testing to see that that when we deserialize it, it actually becomes issue type and that the mapping's right. And so if you were to like debug this and hop into that, you would see that you'd probably get to a file called simple JSON serializer, and that's what OctoKit uses to map all the attributes and types onto from the GitHub API from JSON. So so that's one test, and then I'll show you another test. This is kind of like one of my favorite features of the API is the Markdown. the Markdown part of the API where you can basically send the API some Markdown and then it'll return it rendered to you. And so what's going on at this integration test here is that getting the client, sending some Markdown, and making sure that this is what it looks like on my screen, on the screen in HTML. So yeah, so let's talk about how we use it. So how we get started. So the first thing you normally want to do is create the GitHub client. This is basically your entry point into grabbing what's from OctoKit.
Do you mind if I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You had those marked integration test. What is that that attribute?
That is, I believe, it's a XUnit attribute.
Oh, okay.
So basically, I believe what integration tests do is it basically tests what is coming back from the API, just making sure that what we're sending to the API is what we're expecting. Mostly, it's like like the other tests. If you look at the solution, the other tests are more like, oh, is our code working? And integration test is more like, is GitHub's code working?
Is the whole stack working? I see. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Sure, no problem. So to get started, we make a new GitHub client, put a product header value, which is also your user agent, and we'll get into that a little later about what that is. And then you kind of just poke around, explore the client, see what it does, get some repos, get information about you, and make something. So so let's see what else we're going to do. So now I'm going to show you some demos on how to use it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my solution. Oops. Oh, it's opening. There we go. Here we go. There we are. So the first example I'm going to show you is a simple console app. This is called simple, and I just called it simple repo. And basically what it's doing is I'm printing all my public repos to a console. So as you see here, first thing I do is call the client. My product header value is going to be have OctoKit test, and I'm creating a task to list the repos. And yeah, and before I can list the repos, I gotta get some information about myself, so that I can place because the method getAllForUser from the repository type requires that you put in your login, which is your username. And all I'm doing is printing it to the console. So I'm just going to run this real quick, show you what it looks like.
Now, is this anonymous? Is this an anonymous call?
Anonymous as in like are
you using an API key, or is this going to be rate limited?
No. So this is actually authenticated right now, and we're going to get into an OAuth example in a second here.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sure, no problem. So here we go. It's all my public repos. And that includes forks, and does not include any of my private repos because, as we were just saying earlier, this is unauthenticated. So yeah, so that's my first example. So that was a get. So we got all the repositories that I own. So now we're going to do a post, and I'm going to pull out my favorite feature, which is creating a markdown file, rendering some markdown. Just give it a second here. So we're gonna split that. So yeah, front end is not what we're looking for. Okay, so we're gonna actually show you this in VB. So for all the VB users out there, So basically what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a markdown, new arbitrary markdown instance, and txt.mkd is the text box, and I'll show you that in a second when I run it. Then I grab the render arbitrary markdown method, put my markdown in there, and send it to a label and have that render. And as you see, my client, I'm making my GitHub client each time, like my last example, and I'm rendering it. So let's run it and see how it looks like. All right. I'll put some markdown here. This is a title, and this is I forgot what this is. This is bold? I don't remember. This is bold, I guess. Let's render it and see what happens. Oh, it's italics. All right. Well, yeah. So there we go. So there's that. And now I'm going to show you a third example of OAuth. This code actually wasn't written by me. This was written by Phil Hack. He did an example about how OAuth works with the API, and unfortunately, this demo is I broke it somehow, and the demo's not working. But one cool thing that you'll see if you were to run this on Fiddler. By the way, this is a MVC app. If you were to run this on Fiddler, you would basically see a 302 get called, 302 status code get called, which will redirect you to the GitHub page to make sure to authorize this app running on your machine. So how it basically works is that you would go to your GitHub settings, create a new app, and when you create that new app, you'll get a client ID and a client secret to put into your app. So specifically in this example, what we have here is if we're checking to see if there's an OAuth token, and if there's not one, we're going to, even if there isn't one, we're going to try and get the current repository for the user. This is actually very similar to the example that I showed you with my console example, where I was printing all the repository. I believe get all for current is actually, it prints all of your repos, including your private ones. Don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. But either way, so if you're not authorized, we're going to catch an exception here, and we're going to redirect you to that GitHub page that I mentioned earlier. And all you're going to say is, yes, it'll prompt you to say, oh, do you want access or not? And if you say, do you want this app to have access or not? And you say yes, then it's going to redirect you back to the index, where it's going to try and run. Try and get your repositories again. When it should, at that point, it should work because this method here, authorize, creates your token, and we're saving that in a session variable and sending that and then checking again to see if it's available or sorry there in the beginning of index when we send you back to the index. So and that's it for demos.
So could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So you put the OAuth in the session, but I suppose that if you're using something else, you could put that really anywhere, right? It's server-side state that you need to manage, right?
Yes, exactly. So I mean, essentially, you wouldn't probably want to put this in a session. You'd probably want to put this like maybe in a database or
well, yeah, if you've got a web farm somewhere a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then you said that you wanted to make an app, and that wasn't really clear to me. When you make an app, you're saying like you're going into GitHub and you're registering.
Yeah.
Like you would register OctoKit demo as like an app that GitHub would know about?
Right, exactly. So let me show you, I'll actually show you an example of how it works.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I see that there's a horrible frozen picture of me right there. That's really bad.
Oh, so sorry about that.
That's all good, not your fault.
All right, so I'm gonna get on to GitHub, and I'm just gonna get into my secret. My secret nemesis is a user Evil Paladique.
Oh, so there's like the regular Spock and then the evil Spock version of you?
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
And she actually, she's my twin sister, and she actually looks. This is what she looks like. She's just like this person made up of emojis. So yeah, I'm not. And then she just forks all my stuff. And then she has this evil plans repo. It's empty right now, so I'm not sure what's going on with her. But she can do what she's doing as long as she doesn't. Those evil plans don't involve me.
As long as there's no evil pull requests, right?
No evil pull requests yet. But anyway, so basically I would hop into OAuth applications. So yeah, I go into my settings and I head into OAuth applications, go developer applications, and I'm gonna register a new application. So I'm gonna call it Evil OctoKit Demo.
Okay.
And homepage URL can kind of be anything. And I'm just gonna name it localhost.
Okay.
For now, and then evil. You don't need to put the description in there, and then the callback URL, kind of like you can put localhost in there too.
Yeah, if it was a web app versus a console app or a WinForms app, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So now I got my client ID, my client secret.
Okay.
So say I were to put this in the MVEC app, it would ask me if I want Evil Paladique's app to access my data, and say she decided to be evil, and she's like, oh, that app that I made that you think you really needed, I'm just gonna revoke it, and then you just can't get in. I think you'll turn a 404. And
do you want to try it? Like if you have a client ID, you could use this client ID, couldn't you, in that other app, right?
I could in the MVC app, but let's see what happens. Let's see. So we're gonna grab Evil Paladique here and client secret.
See, evil people are probably watching this right now and trying to do evil. They have just moments of evil before we revoke them and
Yes. So,
okay.
And then I'm going to put this in here.
Now, I assume you don't want to check in your client IDs and client secrets in repos, right?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Because then people can be evil to you. So we're going to run this. See what happens.
And anyone can register one of these. Any GitHub user can register an app, right?
Yeah. As long as you have a GitHub account, you can
I like that there's the regular version of you and the evil version of you.
Yeah.
Just so we know who exactly is asking for permission.
Exactly. So yes. So yeah. If I wanted to author, so basically this is the redirect that I was talking about. It'll ask me if I want to authorize it, and let's see when I press it, it should break. Oh, and then ask me for my password. My password is super long for my GitHub user account, so I'm not gonna put it in there. Actually, oh wait.
Yeah, but you can one password it. Yeah. That's what I do.
Let's do that.
All right. Or not.
I don't know.
Oh, that's your evil versus your regular one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Well, you've got this. Is this your evil password, or is this Paladique's password or evil Paladique's password?
This should be Paladique's password actually. So I'm not sure what happens. Let me just hop into here real quick and.
Okay. Well, we can see. So be smart.
It shouldn't show it.
All right.
Actually, I don't. If it doesn't work here, that doesn't work. It's probably not going to work here.
So is the password it's asking you for your password or Evil Paladique's password? Because Evil Paladique is the person who's asking permission, right?
Yeah. So the other browser that you saw was in incognito mode, and this browser should. I'm not sure what's going on with this.
So what if you revoked that app though right now? Would you just be kicked out, or would it try to log you in again?
I believe it would kick you out.
Let's see. Is it okay if we see?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. So I'm gonna hop back onto Eva Paladique's app.
Okay.
And, I could even just reset the client secret, and that
Oh,
would.
that's a good point. And this really shows, I think, if I may, this shows that people are in control of their data with
Yes.
OctoKit.
Absolutely. So let's see what happens. Ooh, okay. So
I think there's two issues there, aren't there? There's the authorization of the app, and then there's the authorization to call the OctoKit API at all, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's I believe each time that you have to ask to authorize, it's going to ask you for your password. And for some reason, my password's not working. Hopefully, I didn't change it somehow, or hopefully I didn't change it when I made Evil Paladique, or the person who made Evil Paladique didn't get into my computer and make it and replace that password with Evil Paladique's password. So hopefully they're not that evil.
So
anyway.
you can reset client secrets if they get out, like yours just has, and you'll reset it later. And you can also delete and revoke an app that wants to call the GitHub client.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Exactly. So that is it for my demos. So by the way, this code actually lives on Phil Hack's repository. It's called OctoKit Demo, I believe. There's an accompanying blog post with that, and I'm going to put a reference to that in my transcript notes, which will also be on my repo. But either way, let's get back to the presentation. So I'm going to chat about a few other features about OctoKit. So one of the few important things to be aware of is that your rate limit. You don't want to get shut out. You can only make 60 requests per hour when unauthenticated, but 5,000 when you are. So just consider authenticating requests so that if you're in the middle of something really important you're trying to fix, and GitHub says, no, we're not going to give you any more data because you're unauthenticated, consider authenticating. Also, make sure that you can, or at least consider building for failure in case something goes down and your app is not able to access GitHub. There is an API for checking the API status, and there's also actually a Twitter account just for that states the APIs and GitHub's status and what's going on with it at the moment, if it's down or if it's up. And then third, the user agent, which is probably going to be your app name, that you put as a string parameter when you create the GitHub client. Consider making sure that you have one, or else you're going to get rejected. I mean, there's no choice. You have to make one. So just make your app, or else API will reject you. So a few things about a few other features that we didn't cover in this demo was pagination. By default, OctoKit returns the whole data set of a request, but with an API options instance, which is an optional parameter in some of your calls, especially your gets, you can control the amount of data that's returned. Another cool thing is enterprise support, custom tool. So you basically have custom tool solutions for your on-premise repos. So if you want to make a tool that's just for your enterprise employees, that's an option. Simple debugging. Basically, you can step into OctoKit through your project. And the way you do that is through Visual Studio settings, go to options, general, and enable source server support. And then finally, the reactive extension support. It's a iObservable library written for use with RX. And two examples of that is Octonotes, which is a release note generator written by one of OctoKit's contributors, Brendan Forster, also known as ShiftKey on GitHub. He made this really cool app in F#. And then also the GitHub Visual Studio extension that we use RX for our work. So those are two examples that you can check out for reactive stuff. So the coolest thing about OctoKit is that it's open source. You can check out what's going on the repo and make some contributions. And I'm just going to hop on to the repo actually. Let's see. It logs in as Evil Paladine. So anyway, so if I check out the issues, you can see that we have some up for grabs issues. That's probably what you probably want to start with if it's your first time either contributing to repo or contributing to OctoKit. And you can actually search for like past issues or past problems that have happened on the repo or just like discussions.
Do you mind if we dig into that a little bit?
Sure.
So you said up for grabs. Those are marked as being, is that like you're saying that they're like anyone can do those? I could do those if I wanted to.
Yeah, I could do those. Evil Paladine could do one if she wanted to. Yeah, so basically what you'd essentially do is you'd probably hop onto an issue, probably say, oh, I want to take this on, and then just start working on it. And then, so when you're ready, you make a pull request. I would suggest making a pull request early so that everyone can see the whole story of your commits and see what you're doing. So let's see, and have a discussion over what you're working on. So
are you saying that Up for Grabs and OctoKit in general is a friendly place for maybe people to start getting into open source? Like Up for Grabs is saying that you're more than welcome to get involved with our project and update it.
Absolutely, exactly. The way to and if you want to contribute, you don't even have to write code. Even if you just want to just like work on a documentation or like maybe have a discussion around an issue or a way something's written, that's another way to contribute too. So basically the way it works, open a PR and everyone starts chatting about your code and just having discussions, and everyone's really nice and friendly and there to help. So this specific PR actually is really interesting. So GitHub just released a feature that allows you to add multiple assignees to issues, and someone went in and started implementing that into OctoKit.net, and we have a huge discussion about it, and it's awesome, and hopefully that'll get merged soon. So basically, eventually, if your test passed and everything looks good to the contributors, it'll get merged.
I understand, though, from what Andrea said, that compatibility is really important, and I know that you work downstream of this. So if we break something, compatibility is important, right?
Absolutely.
Are you focused more on bug fixing now and not on like adding things, or if you add things, they just need to be added in a compatible way?
Yes, basically. So basically, from what I understand, if you want to create, so say I grab something in Up for Grabs, and say I wanted to
yeah, let's pick one.
Implement the delete a reaction issue, and I would put this and it's great because the contributors the collaborators and contributors are really good at like talking about like where the code should be.
Well, this is actually really nice if you look at what he's done here, and this is, I think, a really good example. So kudos to you all and the team for this, because it says up for grabs with, not a full design, but a couple of sentences that are saying this should live in a new interface, right? And it should have an equivalent observable, to your point about reactive extensions.
Yes.
It's an addition, and then it will go and call delete on the RESTful API. So he's basically laid it all out for you there, and it's up for grabs. So this is a great way for people to get involved, not just in open source, but in I think, big deal open source.
Yes.
GitHub and OctoKit are a big deal.
Exactly, and so everyone, all the people who work on this repo, they're really nice and they're really helpful, and they'll help you get through your first PR, and reach out to them if you want to take on an issue, and like this one.
Yeah,
it looks like this might. Oh, yeah, this one. Yeah, this one's a cool one. Okay, yeah, no one's working on it. Someone's working on ad reactions, but not anything else. Let's see.
Well, it looks like you've got about 100 open things and about 20 or so that are up for grabs. So there's certainly more than enough work to go around.
Absolutely. So, another cool issue is the checkout is the discussion around .NET Core. As I said before, you can run it with 4.5, but there's a huge discussion about how to port a CS project to project.json and stuff like that, and that's been a really cool issue to watch and follow and see what's going on with that.
Yeah, we're learning about how to port a non-trivially sized application over to .NET Core.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. That's about it. If you have any questions, you can get hold of me on Twitter. My slides will be in my talk repo under not lightning talks. I have them split up in lightning and not lightning talks. And then my demos are going to be on my repo as well. I haven't made that repo public yet, but I will as soon as I get on here. And those examples are going to be written in C#, VB.NET, and F#, which is almost done. So thank you very much.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much. This is great. I love it when people put their slides and their demos up on GitHub. That's really the way it should be done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. So do we have any questions I've been watching Twitter, and let's go ahead and ask the folks in the back. If there's any questions, go ahead and throw them up up on the big screen here.
I can just leave my thanks slide up, just in case anybody wants to reach out to me.
So one question that OctoKit is used by both Visual Studio and GitHub for Windows?
Yes, actually, it's used by both.
Is there an OctoKit? Is it OctoKit like the general term, and there's OctoKit.NET, and there's OctoKit for Python and OctoKit for Ruby, or?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, there's if you don't want to write your app in .NET, there's many options. There's Ruby. There's actually let's go to the OctoKit site.
Yeah, let's go see. That's a good idea. Is there like a home page?
Yeah, OctoKit.github.io. So Ruby, Objective-C, and .NET is the ones that that GitHub supports. And then I think there's some third-party here's some other ones, Python, Go, and I think there's a JavaScript one out there. I don't remember where it lives.
And it is a RESTful API, so presumably anyone could generate a wrapper around it if they wanted to as well.
Right, exactly. Super accessible. Here I'll hop into the GitHub API and show you what it looks like. It's like super.
It's really well documented. There's a lot of stuff
super
here.
Well documented.
So are you saying that basically anything I can do with my with the browser as a user, I can do with the API? I can have reactions. I can, well, apparently not reactions. I can't delete them because I know that's up for grabs.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, I can have comments and stuff. I mean, like I can make bots that talk to GitHub issues.
Exactly. You probably if you've contributed open source, I know Microsoft does that for some of their open source stuff. When you put in a pull request, it's going to ask you it'll ask you, did you sign a CLA? We can't merge it. It actually will say that I think it'll send like it's like a notification saying that the checks. So that's one, like the checks that is in the PR for it to be merged, and they won't merge it if it's not able to be merged until you pass all those checks. And I believe that's.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So you can have things that build the project and check for it, and then they won't let you check in until it's been tested, right?
Yeah.
And then you mentioned a CLA, the contributor license agreement.
Yeah.
I know we have a bot where I did a spelling error check. Like I made a small pull request. It's a nothing pull request, and like as soon as I hit comment, it was like, or send the pull request. It's like, oh hi, I'm the CLA bot. Do this legal thing, and it was really cool, and it was all automated. The entire workflow was automated with the API.
Yes, exactly. So, and that is. Probably, I have never looked at making a bot myself, but I'm assuming that you're going to need the API for it.
Absolutely, I know you will. I know you will need the API. And I think the point is that people can use OctoKit to automate any aspect of their GitHub workflow that they find, tedious.
Exactly. And like I said, it's also not only is it for GitHub, but it's for GitHub Enterprise users. For you all to share. Whatever tool you make to for your specific workflow needs. So
I've even seen people make hook it up to Twitter, right? So you could have your issues show up on Twitter or bugs or interactions. It really is pluggable into anything at all.
Right. It'd be really cool to see maybe something like in like PowerShell, like maybe like check all my notifications and see like what issues everyone mentioned me in, and those are the ones you look at.
That's a really good idea. There's a thing called auto rest that like takes Swagger and auto generates a wrapper around it. I bet we could make like OctoKit.ps for PowerShell and check issues and stuff. We should look into that.
Yeah, that sounds actually really cool.
Yeah, it is. And of course, we'll go and Google for it and it'll already exist, but still. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time and for sharing with us today at dotnetConf for Community Day.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Again, you can follow Paladik and Jasmine on Twitter and check out her GitHub repository. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back at lunchtime with Jeff Fritz and Maria Nagaga, who are going to talk about how you can also go open source. And then later this afternoon, we've got Greg Shackles talking about mobile apps. We've got Stacy Hafner, who's going to talk about making games in Unity. And then ending us up at the end, we're going to talk to James Chamber, who is saving lives, seriously, with ASP.NET Core. So stick around. We'll see you soon.